It's great to be back in Louisville. I love your town. And wow, this is an incredible event, too. Already feel upstaged by those two ideas. That's really, really exciting. And frankly, that's what excites me about the music business these days. This is almost a cliche, but I'm going to start my talk with it anyway, because I just love the quote. The music business. This is from Hunter S. Thompson. The music business is a cruel and shallow money trench, a long plastic hallway where thieves and pimps run free and good men die like dogs. There's also a negative side. Okay, so with that out of the way, I love the music business. And, I got into it a long time ago before startups were called startups. I did not have a plan. I'm curious, how many of you operate off of something like a 5-year plan? I'm impressed. I don't. To go back to another quote that always blew me away, I remember back in the late 1980s when Bruce Springsteen went from merely being a huge star to being a true superstar when Born in the USA came out. There was an interview and he was asked if he was surprised about his superstardom, and he said no, that it was the result of every decision that he had made since he was 12 years old. And I was both amazed by that level of intensity and focus, but it's something that I never had. I completely fell into this business, and one of the things that I really love about it is that it is a business of potentially unfolding opportunities at almost every turn, and it's a business that involves constant change. Some people can really embrace constant change. If you don't like constant change, you're going to be very unhappy in the music business. The business has really been that kind of iconoclastic business from the very beginning, because if you just think about the music that was hugely popular when you were a child, most of it's not that popular anymore. And similarly with festivals, I think a lot about, as much as I love many of the bands that were on the first Bonnaroo, if that was the same lineup that we had this past year, we would have had a fraction of the people there, because the music's constantly reinventing itself year after year after year, and the industry itself is doing the same thing. And I think hearing about these two startups tonight is what inspires me about the business so much. And it is tough. It's really tough right now. Everybody in the business is trying to figure out what on earth is going on. How do you make money out of this? It is a hard business to be very successful in. At the same time, the opportunities are extraordinary, and there have never been more creative opportunities, I think, for artists to enter the business and take control of their careers and the creation of their art and the connection with the people who embrace and support what they do. So it's, while it's a very difficult time to be in the business, I think it's, from my perspective, the most exciting time ever in the business in terms of the extraordinary, almost, dizzying array of opportunities that exist. I'm going to talk just a little bit about my experience, my history, and I'm mostly interested in the Q&A part of this and hearing what you want to talk about and what's on your mind. I did fall into the business. I actually resisted being in the music business for years and years, partially because I just couldn't imagine it. I was a fan. I loved music. I loved going to concerts. They were almost magic as far as I was concerned. I got a gig on the NPR station in town back in the 1970s, started playing the music that I loved. Bands found out I was playing their music on the air, started calling me up, asking me if I could arrange for a show. I started doing it. I did it as a hobby for 7 or 8 years while I pursued almost everything else imaginable besides an actual career in the music business. One of those things I pursued for a while was architecture, and I met an architect who decided he wanted to become a developer, and he talked me into opening a nightclub, which I kind of I regard that nightclub, which was called Ella Garous, named after a Captain Beefheart song, if you know Captain Beefheart. This was 1988, 1989, 1990. You know, it was an amazing time in the music business. It was before the business had transformed into being such a high ticket price, high artist fee business for so many of the known artists. So it was a time when Garth Brooks played there when his first record came out. Black Crowes played there before their first record came out. Widespread Panic was coming in and playing. Phish was sending me a homemade cassette of their of themselves because they didn't have a record out and were looking to come to the South for the first time. You know, it was an amazing period, and it's when I developed so many of the relationships in the music business that are really still important to me today. The club didn't really work out. I didn't know what I was doing. I'd never owned a club. I'd never owned a restaurant, which was a major part of that business. It's hard business, maybe even harder than the music business, I think. Ultimately, the club closed after 2.5 years, but I opened AC Entertainment in early 1991, and we're still here 21 years later. The constant change of the music business is the thing I think that really keeps me going and keeps me inspired. And I think it's exciting because confronting conventional wisdom in an environment of almost constant change is a little bit of a thrill for me. I've learned a lot through it over the years. I've been quite frightened by it at various times as well. Pretty early on in the business, in the mid-1990s, there was a massive Wall Street consolidation of concert promoters. I was an independent promoter who was basically working in secondary and tertiary markets where there was most of the touring acts had started ignoring over the years because they were focusing on outdoor amphitheaters. The money had started getting really ridiculous, and it was money that a lot of secondary and tertiary markets really couldn't generate for artists to come into those towns. So we started going back into those towns with other artists and working in historic theaters and just carving out opportunities where we could find them because so many of those markets were being neglected. The startups were all about the amphitheaters, though. It's, the idea was basically to roll up all of the promoters in the United States of America and control the concert business. It was scary if you weren't one of the guys getting ready to be rolled up. You go to conferences in the music business, and there was almost always a panel about the death of the independent promoter, and I realized that they were talking about me. About 2 or 3 years later, I remember sitting on one of those panels and making the statement, which was very true, that this independent promoter was getting ready to die from overwork. So the conventional wisdom about what was getting ready to happen actually wasn't true at all. And in fact, many artists had reacted against the consolidation, and other factors had opened up different opportunities as well. So our business had really exploded by 300 or 400%, and we were jamming. Bonnaroo, the Bonnaroo Music Festival, for which I suppose I'm most known for being one of the founders and promoters and producers of, that was also a response very much to that consolidation in the business. We couldn't afford an amphitheater. We were in a market that where amphitheaters really weren't doing that well. The amphitheater in Nashville at this particular point's closed, and it was always struggling. And certainly, when you got outside of the major metropolitan areas, drawing 20,000 people, dozens of times a year to an outdoor concert was, a challenge. So we couldn't really compete on the amphitheater level with other promoters. So we were looking for an alternative. The alternative was right under our nose. There was a history in the United States going back to, of course, Woodstock in 1969. Festivals, why not a festival? There were still bluegrass festivals in the United States. Phish had started doing their own festivals. But in Europe, there were hundreds of festivals. The festivals instead of amphitheaters were basically the foundation of the touring business in the summertime in European countries. So we started looking at that and saying, why can't someone do a festival right in the United States? And Phish had started doing them right. And we turned to a lot of the people that had worked with Phish on their events. Phish was on hiatus by the time we launched Bonnaroo in 2002. But again, that was a response to an opportunity. We didn't really look at it that way. We were just trying to figure out, what on earth we can't do this, so what can we do to establish a niche for ourselves? And of course, these days, festivals are where it's at, and amphitheaters, they're still there, but they have none of the clout and certainly none of the volume of activity that they had before. How am I doing on time? I'm okay? 5 more minutes or something? Because I definitely want to do the Q&A. Again, the thing that's always kept me so engaged in the music business, I think, has been how opportunities open up as you just engage and start operating in the business. We now manage 2 historic theaters. I had never in my wildest dreams thought I was going to be a theater manager of any kind, but we were in Knoxville. I had started promoting concerts in these historic theaters back in the early 1980s, and then suddenly in the mid-1990s, one of them got shaky, and they weren't sure how to keep it going. I don't think there was a real danger that it was going to become a parking lot, but there was a lot of uncertainty, so we didn't want to see it go away. It was an important part of what we were doing. We went and sat down with the owner. We're like, we operate in a lot of theaters, and we've certainly seen a lot of people do it the wrong way. We think we can do it the right way. Would you give us a shot? He did. We actually started cash flowing the theater almost immediately. 5 years later, we helped usher the theater through a community campaign that raised $25 million to do an astonishing renovation. It's an incredibly beautiful place. And some 16 or 17 years later, we're still operating and managing the Tennessee Theater in Knoxville, and there's a 102-year-old vaudeville theater down the street that we also manage and operate at this particular time too. That's an opportunity we had no idea we even wanted to pursue, and really just emerged out of necessity. We want to keep doing concerts. This is one of our favorite venues to work in. It's a great opportunity. So we were able, fortunately, to step up to the table and do that. That's really been the story of the music business for me. It's just led to a really fun and exciting and inspiring array of challenges. In recent years, I'm really proud of the fact that I've developed a team that's really better than I ever was at promoting concerts and doing a lot of the nuts and bolts stuff around the music, that area of the music business. And with Bonnaroo getting on track and a really incredible team, basically taking the reins of the day-to-day nuts and bolts operation that's involved there, gave me an opportunity to look for other things to do in the business. So I started working with some artists. I wanted to be on the artist side of the equation a little bit more. So about 4 years ago, I started working with a young artist named Abigail Washburn. She's played here in Louisville a few times. She's going to be at Forecastle tomorrow. And we also work with Trixie Whitley, who's going to be here tomorrow, and a couple of other artists that we're very excited about. It's a new phase of the business for me, but one more opportunity that I'm really grateful that the music business has allowed me to pursue. So with that, let's go Q&A. Yes?
Can you give me some examples of I guess logistical nightmares in your business? Some of the hurdles you run into kind of either regularly or anything that stands out?
The whole bit, I think most businesses are like this, but the whole business is about problem solving, really. And I think Sure, there are an infinite array of hurdles. Um, I think yeah, gee, I don't even know. I'm embarrassed, but I don't know how to answer that question right offhand because there's so many of them. I don't know where to start. You got a specific hurdle in mind?
No, but just anything that like stands out to you, like maybe as you got started, once you transitioned into like, where you started into kind of you realize going into the next step. I don't know if you can like define your career that way, but if you had any kind of things where you realized, wow, this is a little bit more than I thought it was going to be, going into it.
Oh yeah, that happens. That still happens almost every day. I think really the most exciting thing about business in general to me, and I know there are a lot of artists here and a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm sure everybody's heard Andy Warhol's famous quote about business being the greatest art form or something along those lines. I do feel like business is an art, and the thing to me, I mean, for a lot of people, business is about making as much money as you possibly can, or at least that's what people think it's about. To me, it's more about the art of getting things done successfully and in a way so that you can sustain your activity and keep doing it. What I've really loved about it is the people you meet. And so when I encounter obstacles out there, I get on the phone and try to find somebody who knows a lot more than I do about whatever obstacle it is that I've encountered, and learn from that person. And contrary to Mr. Thompson's quote, which I do find to be extremely amusing, but the truth of the matter is the music business, to me, is full of great people. Almost everybody I know in the business got in this business because they're really passionate about music, and they feel lucky as hell to be doing what they do. And yeah, it gets tough, and sometimes you have to make really difficult decisions that other people may not understand. But I love the people in this business, and I love working with them, and that's one of the greatest rewards. And it's a group of smart, dedicated, hardworking people, because it is no 9-to-5 job, unless it's like 9 a.m. till 5 a.m. sometimes. Anyone else?
I know you recently came on with Forecastle in 2011. You also do MoFest in Asheville and Big Ears. I live in North Carolina. I'm just curious, are there any other festivals? Because it seems like since Bonnaroo started, you guys kind of set off a domino effect of other festivals around the country. Are there any other festivals around the country that AC is looking to kind of pair with and help promote and bring them kind of under their umbrella?
Not. I mean, there's always some conversations going on, and certainly the United States is experiencing a bit of festival mania right now. My primary interest is in pursuing our own ideas and concepts, and I think on a certain level, the exciting thing about festivals from a promoter standpoint is it really gives you the opportunity to be creative, which, just presenting a band doing its concert, it's them being creative, and usually it's, you're working in the service of their vision. But with a festival, it gives you more of an opportunity to put together a vision of your own, which the artist can very much be part of. And I love working with artists also to curate events like we have with My Morning Jacket this weekend for Forecastle. That's I think it's really rewarding for me personally, and I think it's really great for the fans to see how the artists that they're passionate about are passionate about other aspects of the arts and life and things in general. So to me, when you start zoning in on those kinds of concepts, there's really an infinite array of ideas and opportunities to pursue on various scales. I got involved I didn't really mean to get involved with Forecastle, to tell you the truth. JK first called me about 5 years ago. And, I'm sure he probably had some choice words because he just couldn't get me to come up here. I was really busy on some other stuff. I really had no intention of partnering on a festival. I had too many of my own projects going on, and it was bad timing for that, so it didn't happen. And then he called me again a couple of years later and said, "Would you please reconsider this? I think we would be a really good fit, and I really want to talk to you about it." And at that point, rather than wait for me to come to Louisville, he came to Knoxville, and I was just really blown away by JK, and that's why we got involved in Forecastle. I mean, his passion and his vision and what he had created on his own and grown over the course of, at that point, 9 years was, I really was impressed by that, and I was impressed by him as a person and what he wanted to accomplish, and that's what led to our being involved in Forecastle. We weren't really looking to partner on another festival particularly.
Quick two-part question. One's like more of a historical question. Second's more like, no pun intended, but like forecast of like where we're moving toward in the festival industry. So historical is, my question is, how did Bonnaroo align with Lollapalooza? I just remember as a kid growing up, Lollapalooza was huge. So I just want to hear a real quick historical perspective on where Bonnaroo aligned with that. Was it after, during, how that influenced your business?
What do you mean by aligned with?
Well, I just remember that was another big festival, and it was going on, I think it was in high school, that was in the 90s. So.
Right, Lolla was a touring festival, actually, yeah, originally.
Okay.
But we're not involved in Lolla. It's
Right.
yeah, okay.
It was more of like a festival, mega brands, bringing in, mashing up bands and stuff like that. So I didn't know if that influenced Bonnaroo at all. The second question was like, forecasting forward, like any trends moving forward that you see in the festival industry?
Well, the main trend I see in the festival industry right now is more and more and more and more and more. And that's certainly going to have some challenges associated with it. I think I do think there continue to be a lot of growth opportunities in the festival industry, but I also think that there's going to be some growing pains due to the sheer volume of what seems to be getting ready to happen out there. But it's like anything else. You've got to believe in your vision and believe that your vision's the one, and work real hard to bring it to fruition and not spend a lot of time worrying too much about what everybody else is doing. But that being said, the network of festival producers is a pretty small one, and we all know each other. Certainly, we're competitors, but also friends with the Golden Voice that does Coachella and a number of other events, with the C3 guys who do Austin City Limits and Lollapalooza and a number of other festivals, and various other smaller festival producers out there. And we steal ideas from each other all the time, learn from each other all the time. We go to each other's festivals as each other's guests, and it's I think we all want to see festivals be better. I think we're all, the goal is to make festival experiences in general as great as they can possibly be, because in that sense, I think the rising tide raises all boats. It's amazing when you think about what is the capacity for festivals to realize that the United Kingdom, last count, I think has 400 rock festivals over the course of a summer, give or take a few dozen there. 400, and including quite possibly the largest one in the world, Glastonbury, which is 150,000 people camping. It's almost twice the size of Bonnaroo. And these things, Glastonbury sells out in advance before they even announce their lineup. But they've got like literally dozens of other festivals that are 50, 60,000 people all over the place. So, it's really hard to know for sure how many people ultimately will find themselves embracing festivals and becoming festival goers themselves. So who knows what the limit to that really is. Yes?
Do you see the next generation revenue model being for artists, producers, and labels? And is someone going to get this from you?
Oh gosh. I don't know. No one knows at this particular point. I think everybody's trying to figure it out. You know, I'm really inspired right now by what Amanda Palmer's accomplished. Do y'all know about this at all? Do y'all know Amanda? She used to be in a band called the Dresden Dolls, and she's got a solo career. She just did a Kickstarter campaign for her new record. She escaped from her record label, which she was very unhappy with. I don't remember the exact numbers, but they would not give her the advance that she wanted to make the record that she wanted. And, you know, it was, you know, give or take maybe $100,000. It wasn't like anything outrageous. She raised $1.5 million from her fans on a Kickstarter campaign, which was, you know, many times the goal that she had really intended to raise. And, you know, it puts her completely in the driver's seat of her own career. And I think there's a lot of opportunities for artists to take the reins of their own career and accomplish a lot. You know, you still, you know, at the core of all of this, you know, you have to be an artist who can connect with an audience. You know, there's nothing to overcome that. You know, you've got to be an artist who can walk, a performer. If you're talking about music, you've got to be able to walk out on stage and make music that people care about. And there's no business model that can overcome that if you can't do that. But if you can do that, then the sky's the limit, really. And I think the key is putting together the very best possible team that you can put together to achieve your goals. You know, it's really easy to say, I'm going to put out this record myself. It's much more difficult to put it out well and get it out in front of all the people that really you think should hear it. And whether it's a record company that needs to help you do that, and there's still record companies out there, and I think the record company model is not dead and will survive because we need people who have the skills that a record company is supposed to have in order to help certain artists along the way. I just think it's going to change a lot, and the way the money breakdown, you know, the way the pie split's going to change a lot. But that's what the business is going through right now. I mean, it's in a state of intense change, but I think the opportunities are extraordinary. But there's no one way to do it.
You see the big. I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but there's a white Subaru and a red Mustang getting towed in this parking lot.
Oh no. Oh, that's a downer.
If you walk out the front door and you take a right, there's a little parking lot on the right side of the building. You can't park there. There's a Mustang right now, but anybody else is parking there, you might want to find a spot.
Yes. Pardon? Oh, favorite Bonnaroo moment. That's the one question I can never answer. There are so many Bonnaroo moments, and you know, I start sounding like some sort of like really cheesy hippie or something like that when I start talking about Bonnaroo, because it's been an amazing experience, and I think that first year of Bonnaroo, the thing that I walked away completely, well, I'll tell you, my wife wouldn't go. She was like, there's no way I'm going to go to this music festival, you know, have fun. And that Sunday afternoon, I remember calling her as I was walking across the field, and she said, "You sound 20 years younger." And this was after a pretty grueling several days. And, you know, there was a sense of community with the fans and the artists, and certainly the team of people that were working on that event. And everybody, you know, went through a lot together to pull it off. But it was an extraordinary experience to feel that. And It's been the one aspect of Bonnaroo that I've expected to go away every year. I mean, I remember after that first year, I was like, there's no way that we're going to feel that year two. That was just a special moment. But it's really that sense of community and people, living together on this, field for 4 days to have this, common experience of sharing the music that they love. And, it creates a lot of very special moments. And, what I think I take away from it every year is that, everybody working together and sharing that common vision and, how powerful that can actually be. Sounds corny, doesn't it? But it's true. Yes.
One more quick one. How do you go about choosing the artists? I'm sure you get hundreds of artists who want to play these festivals. How do you go about just getting this whole thing together? New artists?
It's a really messy process. There's a small committee of us that actually book Bonnaroo. We have a weekly call about it almost every week of the year, it's kind of an ongoing process. As we get closer to the festival, I'd say starting in September, we start having 2 calls a week. There is no one way. There are so many, it has a lot to do with what artist touring schedules are. Who's got new albums out, who's going to be playing, who's already going to be on tour, especially as far as like the headline acts go. And beyond that, it's really about the vision of what we feel like the festival needs to be, and it develops organically over the course of time. And I think Bonnaroo's known for its eclectic music. That there's such an extraordinary array of different kinds of music and different performers out there, and so there's no like set formula where we're like, this is going to be the balance of the festival, but we do at some point get into that kind of balance. Do we have enough bluegrass? Is there enough interesting music from other cultures out there? Do we have any blues on the festival this year? And all of those things kind of go into the mix of programming what's happening.
Suggestions as to what an artist should do to try and get themselves on that stage?
Oh gosh. It's just so hard because, somehow you've got to make us care. And I don't mean that in any kind of negative way. It's just that everybody that's involved in booking Bonnaroo is a passionate music fan, and we see like dozens, if not hundreds, of concerts a year, and none of us can do everything that we want to do in any given year at Bonnaroo, because it's very much a group effort. And sometimes there are very painful decisions that have to be made, where I just can't do this. There's no way. But it can be the most serendipitous chance encounter where I might be in a club in New York City and there's an opening act and I'm just like, oh my God, this is great. And I become obsessed with that music, and that artists can make it to Bonnaroo, and this can happen with any number of my partners and whatever. We have certainly agents, managers, other artists who are pushing various agendas that they've got as well, and if we also like the artists that are involved in that, we may respond very positively to that. But it is a very messy, unscientific process, and we ultimately end up choosing, I'm sure that there's well over 1,000 artists that are pitched, if not more, well over 1,000 artists overall. And, it basically boils down to, 150. So, did I answer your question, really? In other words, who knows? Okay, we're out of time, right?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.